said so much about my correcting Einstein. So maybe I will start from there. They have heard so much of Einstein. It's like a God. If you say he is wrong, you are insulting God. It is just blind belief. You don't know anything about the theory of relativity, but you have blind belief that he did it. Because that's a story you have heard. That's the power of story. And that power has been used to rule you, has been used to take over the education system and rule the minds of children. Check the facts, don't believe stories, just like that. Don't believe stories because they were taught to you in your textbook. Don't believe because they are taught to you, Wikipedia teaches you that. Check the facts. So India was such a rich country, it became a very poor country. 50 million people were killed. But we trust the British. What is the beauty of it? They cheated us, they looted, they must be completely trustworthy. Does anybody have any evidence of Pythagoras? Why do you believe it? Just because your textbook says, repeats it 32 times, class 10 textbook, 32 times equal to truth. I gave a prize of 2 lakh rupees, I told them it is still available. It's talking of science. We did it all. And you believe it, don't you, that West did science? They were learning everything from us. They learned arithmetic from us. 900 years to understand it, they were so dull. They did not understand negative numbers. So European states confused right until the 19th century. Why does February have 28 days but July and August have 31 days? And so this is the first proof of immeasurable superiority is of the early Greeks. That a year has 375 days. Obviously immeasurably superior, you have only 365, they have 375. So July was named after Julius and August was named after Augustus, and so you had 31 days both. Where did the extra day come from? So they stole it from February. So that is.
On the behalf of Indic International School, I take the privilege to welcome this distinguished gathering, and we are very much honored and pleased and fortunate to have Dr. Professor C.K. Raju sir to kick off this event.
A very warm welcome to everyone for today's Indic program. So, as we've written for Professor Raju's visit, the man who corrected Einstein. Do I need to add anything more beyond it? In all our school education, everywhere, we made Einstein as one of the most revered intellectuals, scientists, and a person who's pointed out mistakes in his theory. I don't know how many of you would dare do that. And secondly, not only point out the mistake but also correct it. How big an achievement. But let me also tell you in the same breath that this is nothing but just a small speck in the plethora of his achievement. There's a small booklet he wrote, Is Science Western in Origin? I have a few copies of it in the school, but I will be taking that effort to get more copies printed and distributed to whoever is interested. A small 50-60 page booklet, you read that booklet and you will know the strength of his thoughts and the courage that he had to show to even put those thoughts across. Without getting into more detail, I will hand over the mic to Professor Raju. After expressing my greatest gratitude for taking so much time out and spending so much time with our students and all of us here at Indic School in Hyderabad. Thank you very much, sir.
So, thank you very much, Ashish, for inviting me here. And this has been a very instructive session also for me, talking to children, because as you said, as a university professor, you never get to talk to children. Never taught children of this age, except my own children or my grandchildren. So it was an experience for me, and I believe I learned something from that. But let's get to the topic today. You have said so much about my correcting Einstein and so on, and made this thing out of it. So maybe I will start from there. Some of you may be curious as to what exactly happened and how did I correct Einstein and what happened as a result. So now that may be a little bit technical. It is a little bit technical. So I'll just give you an outline, but then the point is, during this award acceptance speech, I called him a false god of science. And the point is, he is not the only false god we have. And lots of false gods have been given to us with the deliberate idea of creating a sense of, awe in the West. So We thought, maybe if it is church education or something, it will indoctrinate people into religious beliefs. But the point is, their aim is to establish their superiority, their supremacy. And they do that through stories. So that is what I am going to get into, that there is a whole lot of false stories we have heard. And Einstein is only one of those. So let me quote from my acceptance speech for the TGA award, Telesio Galilei Award, which was given in Hungary in 2010. And this is what I said. At the outset, I would like to state that the issue is not so much the special theory of relativity, which is a very fine theory. And though it is counter to Newtonian intuition, and therefore it was opposed, there is no doubt at all that the theory of relativity was the work of a genius. The question is, who was that genius? Poincare or Einstein? An obvious answer is, it was Poincare who was the genius, not Einstein. That's just the story you have heard. So the second question, I am quoting again from my acceptance speech, follows naturally from the first. Compared to Poincare, a mathematician, very brilliant mathematician, did Einstein, a non-mathematician, even understand the full mathematical implication of the theory of relativity? He took it from Poincare. But did he understand what he stole? So then the next question naturally, which you would like to ask, is what part of relativity did Einstein not understand? And basically the idea, it is a bit technical, I'm sorry, that relativity needs a different kind of equations than Newtonian physics. In Newtonian physics, you do say force equal to mass into acceleration. So force acts now, acceleration also takes place now. It is instantaneous. In the case of the theory of relativity, special relativity, light takes time to travel, or any interaction takes time to travel. So if the sun is switched off just now, imagine how long will it take for us to get to know? So it will take us 8 minutes, 8 minutes, 13 seconds, something like that. So there is a delay. They are not instantaneous, it is history dependent. Plus it could be more complex than that. It could have anticipation. I won't get into that. So technically, Newtonian physics uses ordinary differential equations or partial differential equations. Relativity uses functional differential equations, which are coupled system of ordinary and partial differential equations. And that part is what not only Einstein missed, all other physicists also missed. If it was only Einstein, it would not be a big issue. Most other physicists also missed. Poincare understood. He was the originator, but others did not understand. And this took a long time to communicate to people, which is the third question which I asked. This is again quoting from my acceptance speech. That brings us to the large mass of people who follow scientific authority. You don't understand the science. I talked about partial differential equations and ordinary differential equations. I don't know how many of you understand it. So they just follow scientific authority. This is what authority says, it must be right. That is Shabda Praman. It is not science. Because Shabda Praman, anything can be told to you. So, following in the footsteps of Einstein, have they fully understood this special theory of relativity? So, those are the three questions I asked, and if not, how should its understanding be corrected today? So, that was the idea, that you have to use functional differential equations. And of course, the question is, what possible practical value does that correction hold for us tomorrow? So, again I am quoting from the speech, the quotation marks are not there. Unfortunately, instead of approaching these questions in the spirit of scientific inquiry, look, this is happening, what is right, what is wrong, people react to it emotionally. They have heard so much of Einstein, it's like a God. If you say he is wrong, you are insulting God, and therefore you have to be attacked. There is no question of scientific inquiry here, not at all. It is just blind belief. You don't know anything about the theory of relativity, but you have blind belief that he did it, because that's the story you have heard. That's the power of story, and that power has been used to rule you, has been used to take over the education system and to rule the minds of children, to tell stories, all sorts of false stories. It's a well-known church technique from the 5th century, from the time they built up false history, Orosius. So people react to this emotionally. How dare you question Einstein? Right? Who are you? How does that matter if I am proposing a scientific theory? You tell me what is right or wrong with the scientific theory. Don't ask me who I am. I may be nobody. That doesn't matter. So, basically, it is Einstein is a symbol of scientific authority, has been made into one. How that happened, what are the politics behind it, I won't go very much into that. New York Times carried a huge issue and so on and so forth. Why this happened and who owned New York Times and so on, let's leave that aside. So people want to hang on to that story that they have learned since childhood. This is true for every story that they learn from childhood. So every false story that we implant in the minds of children becomes a stumbling block. So anyway, what people do, the less they know about the theory of relativity and its history, the stronger is their belief. See, there's a paradox. The less you know, the stronger is your belief. And therefore, ignorance of science and mathematics is deliberately inculcated in you. Why do so many people say we don't understand mathematics, we don't understand science? Colonial education came for the sake of science, so it should have brought you some. How come it did not teach you? That's what Macaulay said. That's what everybody will justify. We need colonial education for the sake of science. How come so many people don't know today? So they say happily, we don't know mathematics. We had difficulties in childhood. It's nothing to be proud of. So there is a problem, and that problem requires a solution. So the only thing they have learnt is here is a symbol of scientific authority, respect it. And therefore they are annoyed that the authority is being attacked, and they react in that manner, not like human beings, not thinking about things. So, as I said again, quoting from the acceptance speech, the issues could easily be settled in many ways. Just read what Einstein wrote, read what poincare wrote. I've quoted it in my books. Just read it, read what Lawrence wrote, and read what Einstein wrote. They won't read it, for whatever reason. They just won't do it. This is our belief, it will stay that way. So they cannot or will not read this. Instead, they proceed in a roundabout fashion. They proceed by guesswork, which is not a very good way to do science at all. So, and reliance on authority. Let us ask this chap, he must know something. Let us ask that guy, and he should know. So, this is very dubious guesswork. It has nothing to do with science. That is not how science is done. You must know, and you must check, and you must check, and be sure yourself. So, they guess that. How could scientific authority make such a mistake? So many people, how can so many people be wrong for so many years? Seems like a good argument. It is what I call a monkey argument. And this is exactly what people believed in Galileo's time. They had deep-seated belief in religious authority. How can religious authority be wrong? Galileo must be wrong. So, because they did not reason out, they did not do anything, they did not investigate, they just relied on authority. And authority is very often wrong. Because authority is used for power, it's used to manipulate people so often. And that is what happened with Galileo. They thought the Pope has said it must be infallible. How can you challenge it? And therefore they start questioning the motives of the creator. This guy must be something wrong, that guy there must be something wrong. Here this critic is faulty. which is all a very bad kind of reaction. So I won't go more into that. There is a video on that, on Einstein's. Am I connected to the internet? Yes, I am connected. Okay, so this is the video. You can take a look, and I won't, of course, play it now. I'm just showing you that it is there. Video is available on YouTube. And for the math that is involved, the correction of Einstein, you can see this book. Now this is advanced level book. I wrote it actually under a tree, because I used to sit under a tree in Pune University to discuss with people. And I found it amazing how hard it is to get the message across. So after 2 years, 3 years, I said, I'm saying the same thing for so long, nobody is getting it, what's the matter? Must be something wrong with what I'm saying. So I got it published as a series of papers in the local journal from Pune University, which is the UGC Journal Physics Education. And people started saying, oh, you got it published in UGC journal, you are saying such big thing, get internationally published. So this is the internationally published with the most prestigious publisher. Now it costs $175. They said, you can't buy it. So what can I do? I don't know, whichever way you go, it's wrong. It is still the UGC journal as well, actually, forget about it. So this is what happened. And there's a series of expository articles which are published again in that same journal, Physics Education, on functional differential equations. Recently, just as a revision. So that it's a new paradigm in physics, it changes things. Looked at the classical hydrogen atom which people study. Looked at radiative damping, that's Maxwell's equations. Looked at retarded gravitation, looked at time travel, and looked at quantum mechanics. So there were 6 papers which I published just to keep the things in an expository way, explaining to people who have some knowledge of physics. There are also other professional publications. There was this electrodynamic two-body problem and the origin of quantum mechanics. So the two-body problem, hydrogen atom and so on, and that is where quantum mechanics began. What is wrong with it? It was to be done using functional differential equations in electrodynamics, which was never done. So the conclusions that you get are quite often wrong. There was a paper on time travel related to that, because functional differential equations are not only history dependent, they can be anticipatory. So this idea of spontaneity in science, science is not deterministic. You can have spontaneity because life, we are part of the world and we are spontaneous. Now how does that fit into deterministic physics? It does not. So functional differential equations allow that. There is another paper on radiated damping. So now this is the authority that you expect. So I wrote it with my son who did his PhD. And I do not know why you think it is such a big thing, but that is what people do think. So he is a professor of physics in Hyderabad. And retarded gravitation theory, this is a paper I presented in the 6th International School in Rio. Okay, so these are some of the things that are there. Then I wrote a second book because I found that the first book was too difficult for people to follow. The level of mathematics that was used in it was too difficult for people. I wrote on 11 pictures of time. So this book was there, and this is available. And it was released by Yashpal and Kapila Vasan. This explained history dependence and anticipation in functional differential equations for the layperson and its relation to quantum mechanics. And openly I called Einstein for the first time a habitual plagiarist, because it wasn't just poincare he copied from everybody he could. Boltzmann, Gibbs and so on. See, a thief never stops at one theft, rarely. Very few people think, okay, हो गया, अभी एक बार बच गए, दूसरे बार फिर से करो, there is no problem. So this is what happened. So this was the news release that I gave, was Einstein a habitual plagiarist. Some papers carried it, but many are too scared to carry it. That is a simple fact. So that is discussed in the book. It has a whole chapter on in Einstein's shadow, where his variety of his cases of plagiarism are discussed. Then in 2005, 2005 was the centenary of Einstein's 1905 special relativity paper. So there were so many, the paper's title of that special relativity paper was on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. It's all closely connected with electrodynamics, speed of light and so on. That is where it starts from. There's an understanding of Maxwell's equations, and it's not correct. Linking Maxwell's equations to what is called the Heaviside-Lorentz force law. So what happened was that, you see, plagiarism in academics is a very common thing. So Michael Atiyah, he was the president of the Royal Society, a much decorated mathematician, Fields medalist, Nobel laureate. So they are on the lookout for such things. So this book has been published, and it is almost 10 years. It was published in 1994. How come it has not made such a sensation? So because people didn't understand. So he understood the point I was making. So he copied. He copied it and gave a lecture on it, on his Einstein centenary lecture, which repeated my point that FDs can explain quantum mechanics. But he said that he didn't cite me. He called it Atiyah's hypothesis. So, President of Royal Society, our scientists died to become members of the Royal Society. So he repeated my thesis and said, don't forget that I suggested it. My son pointed it out because he attended his second lecture. And I was traveling, I was somewhere in Singapore, I could not see, I told him to send a letter. He sent an email. And acknowledged, yes, this book is very relevant to what I am saying. But he did it in a socially savvy way. He did not say Einstein was a thief. He said, I have a hypothesis which is going to do all this, and to the press on the quiet, he said, okay, there was this issue between Einstein and poincare, and people believe that Einstein did it, not poincare, and so on and so forth. So he hinted at it without directly saying. So he called it Atiyah's hypothesis, not Einstein's mistake, but that was socially savvy. I am afraid I am very blunt. So, which doesn't necessarily sit very well with people. Later he copied, then he did it again. After he was informed, he did it again. He said, who are these Indians to stop me? I can get away with it. They are our subjects. And so he was, then I took a big issue and the long fight, and then finally he was forced to admit my priority. So he admitted my priority. This was in the letter to the notices of the American Mathematical Society. So it came as a letter to the editor that, okay, this work was done by C.K. Raju, and we encourage people to read it. Not a word of apology, not a word saying, look, I did this, nothing of the sort. So there was a big issue after that, and they cited some of my works and said that these ideas were stated earlier. So he was forced to admit it, he would not have otherwise done it. And he was actually also indicted by society called Society for Scientific Values. So this was case number 2 of 2007, this one, Atiyah Raju case. And they said that, all right, this is the case, and let us, then they said, because he is a powerful man, and the president of the society actually wanted to become a member of the Royal Society. That's why he took up the case. So he could not manage it. He was the director of IIT. We had a big fight on that. So the point is, then the issue became public, and that is why I later received that award in Hungary in 2010, because people came to know. But of course, still nobody believes that Einstein was wrong. How can God be wrong? So you don't understand, but you have this deep faith in authority, and the less you know, the stronger is your belief. So, all right, that is why I said he's a false god of science, because you have this belief in God, no matter what the facts, you will continue to believe in this god of science. So, basically he was a patent clerk. As a patent clerk, he understood that it is completely legal to steal ideas if you don't steal the actual wording. There is no patent on ideas. It was his job to decide whether this patent is legal or not. He very well understood this law. And he copied from Boltzmann, he copied from so many places, from Gibbs and so on and so forth. This wasn't even Einstein Bose statistics, he called it. Einstein made no contribution. It was entirely Bose statistics. But first it was called Einstein statistics. Then Dirac intervened, it became Einstein-Bose statistics. Then finally, it became Bose-Einstein statistics. Then finally, it became Bose statistics. But that was just because Dirac was a Nobel Prize-winning physicist. His brother-in-law was Wigner, was a student of Hilbert, and he understood that general theory of relativity Einstein stole from Hilbert. So it is really a very big thing. So anyway, Aki understood all this. He understood this, and so he. So, but what I want to tell you today, this was just by way of introduction, because you have made this point, and therefore I had to explain what is it that I have done and what is it that happened and so on. So there are not, this is not one thing, there are many such false gods of science. And this is something which affects you, which affects your children, which affects the education system, and which has been very deliberately put in. So, I mean, the fact is that so many people say, oh, we don't understand science, we don't understand relativity, we don't understand science. Is that some kind of an creditable achievement? So, I mean, why do you not understand? When you have taken colonial education for the sake of learning science, why don't you understand? Why don't you ask there's something wrong with that decision that you took? So, the point is, if you don't understand, you have to pay the price of ignorance. There are plenty of people out there waiting to prey on your ignorance. So if the deer goes and says, oh, I am helpless, I can't defend myself, we just get eaten up. That is what happened with us. Right? We were colonized. We were colonized, and very largely with the help of stories. Because the mind was colonized. They got into your mind, they conquered your mind. And that conquest is still going on because they took over the education system. So that affects you, and your children will also pay the price unless you get rid of it. So what is it we are talking about? Just check the facts. Don't believe stories just like that. Don't believe stories because they were taught to you in your textbook. Don't believe because they are taught to you, the Wikipedia teaches you that. Check the facts. A simple thing. But we refuse to do it. Absolutely refuse to do it. 25 years I have been fighting. People refuse to do it. We will not check the facts. Now what do you do? So as I said, you pay the price. So India was such a rich country, it got looted 2 centuries, it became a very poor country, 50 million people were killed. But we trust the British. What is the beauty of it? We trust the British. They cheated us, they looted, they must be completely trustworthy. What is this logic? I fail to understand. So there are many people who would prey on your ignorance and give you false gods to worship so that you are in awe of them. You accept their supremacy, you accept their superiority, you mentally accept it. 1847 there was 1857 there was a rebellion. After that they had this colonial education in a big way. It was meant to control revolts. That was Macaulay's objective. And he said it explicitly in a speech to British Parliament. So there are many more false gods of science. He mentioned the book. Here is the book. So you see these 4 chaps hanging upside down. So here you have Euclid. Here you have Ptolemy. This is Isaac Newton. This is Nicholas Copernicus. All people about whom you have heard big stories or will hear big stories. They are all stories which are there in our school text. Well, Ptolemy is not there in school text. Copernicus is there. Newton is there. Euclid is there. Very much there. How superior he was. Whether he existed or not, you don't know. Does anybody know? Does anybody have one piece of evidence? I mean, I am talking to children about Pythagorean theorem. Does anybody have any evidence of Pythagoras? Why do you believe it? Just because your textbook says, repeats it 32 times, class 10 textbook. 32 times equal to truth. I gave a prize of 2 lakh rupees, I told them it is still available. Give me one piece of evidence of Pythagoras or one piece of connection of Pythagoras to the theorem named after him. But you all believe it. That's the beauty. That is what I am trying to understand. How come people not only believe it, they are so secure, so solid in their belief that it must be there. If so many people say so, it must be true. Doesn't strike you that there are people who make fools of you using that logic? So, this is the reason why, this is, this is just the back of that book, that during the Crusades, the European, Christian part of Europe lacked knowledge, because there was a Muslim part of Europe too, Spain and so on. So they lacked knowledge. They wanted to get knowledge. And they got knowledge from Arabs. All the first textbooks in your big universities, Cambridge and so on, they were from Arabic sources. Translations from Arabic to Latin, say for example medicine, Ibn Sina, was translated for 500 years, it was used as a text. But the point was that they wanted this scientific knowledge, but how could they get it? Because it was not theologically correct. It was from the enemy, religious enemy, and they burnt these books as heretical books. Look what they did to the Maya books. All their books were burnt. You don't have any information how they constructed their beautiful pyramids which tell you about equinox. So they burned them, they are heretical. So they wanted to do the same with this. But then they wanted to win a war, so they said, let's get the knowledge first, and then how to get the knowledge. So they said it was all our inheritance. We did it, we did not do it, our friends, the early Greeks did it. Everything was due to early Greeks. It's a religious God going on, everybody believed it. And then after so many centuries, you still believe it, there is not a single piece of evidence. That's why Pythagoras, that's why Euclid, that's why Ptolemy, all Greeks. And you have no evidence. Please tell me any evidence that any of you have. I have offered prizes, I have offered a prize of 2 lakhs for Pythagoras, for Euclid, and all these press people will fight, but not a single one will give you one piece of evidence anywhere. Why are you removing Pythagoras? You are chauvinist. It doesn't strike them that such a thing as Christian chauvinism, which started during the Crusades. So the point is they accepted that, and during the Inquisition, and then there was the doctrine of Christian discovery and so on. This was promoted, very strongly promoted, this kind of chauvinistic history of science. The church understood that people are not going to accept just a chauvinistic history, they wanted a secular history. And science is something which people respect. Other things they may not respect. But science everybody wants. So this is what they said, and that is where case of calculus, Newton stole calculus, as I will tell you, this revolution by rediscovery. It was a doctrine of Christian discovery. So that is what happened. So colonial and racist historians push this false history forward, and they teach it to you from an early age. You think it is most natural and you never ask for evidence. And you get annoyed when somebody challenges that history. You get extremely annoyed, because those are all symbols of authority. You have believed them for so long. So you get extremely annoyed. This is the normal reaction. So it's a source of power. This was a source of power used by Macaulay when he asserted that Europeans are, so totally superior in respect of science, immeasurably superior. And we accepted it, we changed our entire education system based on that. That is the power of the lie. And that indoctrinates people through the education system, because the education system we got was church education. There was no secular education in Britain till 1870. The first law for secular education in Britain was passed in 1870. All these universities, Cambridge, Oxford, etc., Paris, every such university in Europe was set up by the church. And of course, primary education was entirely in their hands. And so the idea is to enslave people and to make them believe their supremacy. Like white supremacy. White supremacy is an offshoot of that. Apartheid just ended in South Africa in 1992. So it was Christian supremacy, white supremacy, then Western supremacy, all using the same false history of science. So let's just recall Macaulay's boast that the West is immeasurably superior in science, and therefore we accepted it. So I was showing this to the children. We did not understand that he's talking of science, but he's giving us church education. So this is his infamous minute on education. Maybe I can just check So we want superiority, maybe. All right. So let's go to the next. Yeah, so this is what he's talking about. One shelf of a European library is worth the entire native literature of India and Arabia. And where is the immeasurable superiority here? So here the superiority of the Europeans becomes absolutely immeasurable when it comes to science. They're not talking of Christianity, they're not talking of anything else, he's talking of science. We did it all. And you believe it, don't you, that West did science? We did not have any science. Most of you believe that. That's the story of God. You don't have a single fact. Or do you? Any fact about the Greeks? Any fact about Newton? Any understanding of what calculus, how he stole the calculus, what it was, and so on. So anyway, it was on this basis that we did it. It's not just we. We were not the only ones to be made fools of. Everywhere in the colonized world, whether you go to South Africa, you go to any part of the world, it's the same story. You go to Lebanon, it's the same story. You go to Palestine, it is the same story. So they believe that the West is superior, they invented it. You go to Iran, the same story. They have sent a man to the moon, superior. So this was the reason why we did it. Because we thought it is for our own benefit. We are getting science. But we didn't see what we are getting. If we are getting science, how come none of you has it today? You don't ask this question. After 2 centuries of colonial education, you don't have science. You are much weaker in math than we were. We were very good in math. In the 18th century, they were learning everything from us. They learned arithmetic from us. Basic primary school arithmetic went from India. And they took 900 years to understand it. They were so dull. It's a fact. So the first person to get Indian arithmetic was Pope Gerbert. And he was Gerbert, he became Pope later, he was Gerbert at that time. This was in the 10th century. And they did not understand negative numbers. Indian arithmetic had 0, but it also had negative numbers. They did not understand negative numbers because it went via Arabs, it went via Al-Khwarizmi. And Al-Khwarizmi's book does not have negative numbers. And then this was copied, translated by Fibonacci in Liber Abaci. And Liber Abaci, if you see the translation is available, look at chapter 4, you can only subtract smaller number from greater number. That's the title of chapter 4. How to subtract smaller numbers from greater numbers. Why? Because they did pebble arithmetic. Right from Greek times they did pebble arithmetic. So if you have a hoard of pebbles, you can only take a subtraction as removing pebbles. You can only take away as many pebbles as you have got. You can't take away more. So Europeans stayed confused right until the 19th century. 19th century text of Augustus de Morgan, who was a professor in University College London, he says negative numbers are evil, negative numbers, if you cannot, how can you believe them? How can you believe -9 less than 0? That something can be less than nothing, this kind of nonsense he's writing. And the 20th century text also this kind of nonsense. I studied from one such text called Hall and Knight Algebra. So that is my next book on the arithmetic revolution. I won't give away the entire plot. Alright. So this is the point is that this message of Western supremacy is shifted from white supremacy to Western supremacy using this fake history of science. And this is the paper that I tweeted, Euclid, this is a talk that I gave in the universities of Tübingen and Pretoria. This was a keynote address in these universities, and this talk was that Euclid must fall. As you know, this agitation that took place in South Africa, they said Rhodes must fall. And so this other person who invited me was from Pretoria University. So the idea is that they started with Christian superiority, went to racist superiority, and then went to Western superiority. And this paper explains how that happened, how that transition took place, all using the same false history of science. So do take a look, it's available online. Euclid must fall. All right. So this is the idea that you are given false gods of science to worship so that you become their slaves. And Macaulay's real aim was to prevent revolts. There is a speech in British Parliament. I won't quote that because it's a long thing, but you can look up this speech where it was done. So these are the miscellaneous writings and speeches of Lord Macaulay. And now it will take me some time, but please look it up. I have quoted from it in many places. It was on 18th of April 1847. I am not talking rubbish like the BJP manifesto did about Macaulay. All right, I am giving you a concrete reference which is available online, which you can read and check. Because they said, he did this speech, he did that, which is all false. Now, I've written that it is false, that is not the point. So Macaulay, why he said explicitly that he was afraid that there would be a revolt in Britain along the lines of the revolt in France. And he describes in great detail the kind of revolts that took place in London earlier. And he said, have you ever seen an educated person revolting? You have not, no? So educate them. And the government should educate them free of cost. The poor, rich people can take care of themselves. The poor should be given free and compulsory education. This was Macaulay's contention. Because this education makes people obedient, it makes them submissive. And therefore they will not revolt. And in India it came after 1847, after 1857, the big universities, in a big way, came to India after that. Okay, I skipped that, I already said it. And I think I have repeated this already, that if it came to India for science, every educated person should know a little bit of science. Why are you so all afraid? Oh, this math, we don't know math, we don't know this, we don't know that. Then why did you get this system of education? Why don't you examine whether your premises were correct? And they just keep saying, we were so scared of math in school, we had a bad teacher. It's not because of the teacher, it's not because of you. There's something wrong with the subject. How can so many people all be bad at it? So that something wrong is coming through these false gods of science, one of them particularly, Euclid. So what you learned was stories. Oh, Einstein did this, oh, Newton did that. What he did you don't quite know, but he did something big. So therefore he is to be worshipped. Alright, so particularly Einstein is different. You do very little of relativity theory in school, but Newton and Euclid are the big false gods which you follow, and you do mathematics, you teach mathematics very badly in school and college. And there is no way to correct it, at least not in India. At least abroad they accept. But in India, no way. How can you do it? You cannot challenge. They are white also, they are west also, and they are gods also, and you are challenging them all? No way. Alright, they get enraged. They attack, press attacks, everybody attacks. Now the point is that science needs math. And if the West was so superior in science, why did they have to learn primary school arithmetic from India? Why was Fibonacci in the 13th century importing from us? Alright, so all arithmetic which came from India, I mean, this was primary school. If you look at Fibonacci's book, it is on primary school arithmetic. And it is exactly like Mahavir's Ganit Sar Sangrah. It's a book at that level. This is the 13th century. So, we can't do it because it is taboo. History of science, I have been talking about it. 75 years since independence. How come we don't have a single university department of history of science? This is a source of power. A source of power, if you study, it's taboo. How? Because you study, everything will be exposed. So it is taboo. Therefore, it does not exist. You have all sorts of departments. See, in Murli Manoj Joshi's time, they have set up 16 departments of Vedic astrology. And now Vedic astrology again recommended by UGC. But nothing on history of science. Because that's taboo. And we don't recognize that it is taboo. We don't recognize that it's a source of power. Okay? So they are a source of colonial power. We don't have that, and we did not examine whether Macaulay's boast was true or false. This is what I am trying to teach the students. So they talk of Vedic math, whether UGC talks of Vedic math. Where is the math that we are talking? There is math in the way. There is probability theory, there are large numbers, but it is not Vedic math. Alright, so I have this news item. Well, not news item, this is not correct. It should be called opinion piece. A newspaper item. Alright? There is nothing Vedic in this, in the Hindu. And if you just Google, you will get it. And there's a video on that. It's a recent video, which is a talk that I gave at the National Institute of Technical Teachers Training. This picture you see there is of the colonized ape. Because you imitate, you ape the West, so the ape has his bow tie and he has a suit and so on, and he's sitting there. And that's the idea. This was in the National Institute of Technical Teachers Training in Kolkata. They asked me to give a keynote. So this was about UGC recommendation for Indian traditional knowledge systems and some problems in what they recommend. So this is available on YouTube. Take a look. The entire lecture is there. So, but let me come back. We can't talk of science because you don't know science. You can't talk of history of science because you won't do it because it is taboo. What are we going to talk of? How are we going to get rid of this imposition? So this is a very dangerous situation. You did not realize that you have been put into a trap through colonial education, that you can't escape. You have no means of escape. After all, you think of it, all the native population of the Americas was destroyed. They were all killed, 100 million of them. All the native population of Australia was destroyed. They were all killed. Well, not all, some were left. One was a vice chancellor, now they are giving them some positions. So he is trying to defend them, like they give positions to blacks in South Africa. That lady in University of Cape Town, she was the vice chancellor. So hostile. So let us talk of what you learnt in school. You don't know science, you don't know history of science, but you learned something in school. Let us talk about that at least, so that we can have a conversation other I am saying something, you are listening, not believing or whatever is happening. So let us take the first lesson about your birthday. So you have a calendar. You learn that at the first lesson. So you must understand the calendar. Unfortunately you don't. So what is to be done? So birthday you learn only the Western Christian calendar. It is a Christian calendar. It is officially the Christian calendar since the 4th century. From the first Council of Nicaea, it was accepted as the Christian calendar. It defines the Nicene Creed. It defines Christianity. Because the Nicene Creed was defined by the date of Easter. So it forces you to recite ADBC with every date that you cite. Year of our Lord. And then you start believing. Jesus was born. It was the birth of Christ. That's what everybody says. How do you know Jesus was there? There's no evidence. No need to give evidence. You tell people stories, they believe everything. No need to provide evidence. Tell it at an early enough age, they'll believe everything. So, anyway, scientifically the calendar needs astronomy. Alright, and Macaulay boasted about the superiority of Western astronomy. You see what he said? I have it here still, I hope. No, where is it gone? It's gone. Macaulay is gone. Okay. So he said that look at this stupid Oriental astronomy. It is enough to move girls in an English boarding school to laughter. I showed it to them today or yesterday sometime. And I asked them, how is this astronomy that you have in the calendar so superior? So he said it would make the girls in a British boarding school. Why girls? Because girls are inferior to boys. That is why he used girls. And even the girls, that was his logic. Alright? So that is what he was trying to emphasize. So I wanted to ask them, I gave them this homework. Superior astronomy, and I'll just, so that you also have some idea what is going on in the course. So I asked, why does February have 28 days but July and August have 31 days? It is immeasurably superior astronomy which is leading to this conclusion. What is immeasurably superior about it? Or is it going to move the girls in Hyderabad to laughter? Alright. So this is what I wanted to ask. Well, the boys also, I am not just singling out the girls, I am just quoting Macaulay, obviously you understand. So what is immeasurably superior about this calendar or this science which says 31 days, 30 days, 20, what has it got to do with any natural cycle? So they didn't do the homework. So I had to do it for them because I wanted them to understand, to feel if they search, they will understand. Otherwise I am talking, they are listening. So I did the homework was done. So this is the first proof of immeasurable superiority is of the early Greeks. Early Greeks did so many things, they were so superior, that's what you hear, that's the story Wikipedia tells you. So the learned Greek Solon, he told the Lydian king of Greeks, Croesus, that a year has 375 days. Obviously immeasurably superior, you have only 365, they have 375. And this is from Herodotus, I am not inventing it, Herodotus history. It is I gave the reference, I have it here if anybody wants, it's in section 1, chapter 1. Ah, there it is, 1.32. Alright? That's the source. So that is what I tell children, that if you just hear a story, you hear no source, be suspect it immediately. Alright, suspect it immediately. So I am giving you the source. Second proof, that the Roman calendar, when the Julian reform was done, it had a year of, it needed a year of 445 days. How bad it was, imagine. And they used to laugh at the Greek calendars. It's a joke for them that the Greeks don't have any calendars. They're so inferior. So this is their superiority. They had 445 days and they could not find it out themselves. That is the third proof. They could not find it out themselves. They could not correct their bad calendar. So they asked the Egyptians, Sosthenes, to correct it for them after they had conquered Egypt. Egypt was under Greek rule. The Romans conquered it. After that, Julius Caesar asked them, you have heard the story of Anthony and Cleopatra and so on, Caesar and Cleopatra and so on. So therefore it was called the Julian reform. The work was done by Egyptians. It was called the Julian reform. And therefore the month of July is named after Caesar. And because Caesar was great, therefore it had to have 31 days. Okay, the fifth month, Quintilis, was renamed as July. Now, the point is that the Egyptians did have fractions. They had good arithmetic. So I showed it to the children. This is the I of Horus fraction. So these are, the numbers 1 by 4 etc. were not there. They are just written for your benefit. But this is a motif that you find in a whole lot of Egyptian architecture. And it is the I of Horus. So that is why it is called that. So these are all numbers in a geometric series, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1 by 32 and 1 by 64. It's a geometric series. And so they had unit fractions, parts of 1, but the Romans didn't have. So they could not tell them, look, the year is 365 and 1/4 of a day. So they said you have a leap year system, just use numbers, just every 4 years you add a number. Alright? So they gave a calendar of 30 days alternating with 31 days and said 365 days, every 4th year you add a number. So they did not have fractions. Therefore they had this leap year system. So superior. Alright, then what happened? This idea that it is a substitute for 1 by 4, they did not understand. They took 20 years to understand. When they took 20 years to understand, then finally Augustus Caesar changed it. So he understood, otherwise they were doing, let us say, 2020 is a leap year. Then they said, counted 2020 as 1, 2021 as 2, then 2022 as 3, and 2023 as 4. So they made 2023 the next leap year. That they did for 20 years. Alright? And he understood this, he made a correction. I think Augustus Caesar. Alright, so he said there must be a month named after me. So that is the month of August. And then he said that, look, it has only 30 days, that's no good. How can I be the lesser Caesar than Julius? That is Dawin. So you have to make it 31 days, so he got it done. So that's Augustus Caesar, then he is arguing why it should be done like that. So it's a big thing I won't show you, but that's the idea. You got the idea. Alright. So July was named after Julius and August was named after Augustus, and so you had 31 days both. Where did the extra day come from? So they stole it from February. So that is why it is like that. So that is how you have this kind of complete nonsense calendar about which Macaulay is saying our astronomy was immeasurably superior and you fellows didn't have any astronomy. Whereas they learned most of the astronomy from us and from Copernicus learned from Ibn Shatir and so on. So just plain lie, and he's dead sure that you will never check it. And he's right for 200 years, you did not check it. 200, it's now 200 years since he gave that. 1835. It's 2024. Nobody has checked it, nobody has said this was all false history that Macaulay used. And if you say that you are wrong, what are you doing? You are some Christian chauvinist or you are some other, you are Hindu chauvinist or this or that or whatever. That's all. That's the only answer. No comparison of facts. You can't have facts, you can only have abuse. Abuse is the right answer to somebody who criticizes. So this is what we have. So therefore this is being taught to them that here we have the Indian calendar where every month is always 30 tithis. It's a scientific calendar. India has science, they had the experimental method right from the time of the Buddha. You find it in the Payasi Sultans. They had science, they understood that the earth is round, they understood that so many things, they are very clear. They only teach you superstition, Rahu and Ketu. Rahu and Ketu are the ways of determining eclipses. That's what I'm going to teach them tomorrow. You need them to determine eclipses. But they only tell you this story. We had science, we had superstition. And because people only follow stories, to tell them stories, they suspend disbelief and follow whatever you say, whether it's Harry Potter or Superman or Batman, they believe everything. What to do? Or whether it's Amitabh Bachchan fighting a tiger. That's all the same. It cannot be done. So this is that the calendar was very bad because 365 and 1/4 day, well, it was changed to the year of Lord calendar in the 6th century. But this has 365 and 1/4 days, it's a wrong figure. You teach it still. It's an abysmally wrong figure. This was known, Aryabhat in the 5th century had a better figure. But we teach that wrong figure. So what happened with that wrong figure? The date of equinox slipped. Because it is off in the second decimal place. It is 365.24, not 25. So after 100 years, the date of Easter slips. You get one extra day. So 10 days had accumulated by 2000, by the 15th, 16th century. So they corrected it. They knocked off 10 days from the calendar. Then Britain understood it much later. They understood it and then they accepted the Gregorian reform in the 18th century, and Russia understood it in the 20th century. That is why the October Revolution, they call it October Revolution, it comes in November. So, it's a fact, they accepted it only in the 20th century. So they needed it for correct navigation. They did not do it for religious reasons. They knew from the 5th century, they knew that the calendar is wrong. They kept it. And they needed it for economic purposes because to determine latitude at sea, latitude, not longitude. Longitude problem persisted because they didn't know the size of the earth. So anyway, this was introduced in the Jesuit curriculum by Clavius and so on. So let's go over that. So the point is, let's come back to ourselves. So this is this simple case of the calendar which is taught to you as the first lesson in childhood. You don't know enough about it. You don't investigate, you don't ask why it is superior. You accept the story when it is so terribly inferior, just in front of you. That is the power of indoctrination. So now you see, we don't know science, math, we don't know its history, and we don't know whom to trust. So they taught you. We looted you, you must trust us. We are the most trustworthy people. Right? And distrust the West. This is what Wikipedia does. If you have a Western source, it will accept. Non-Western source, it will reject. It won't put it there, it will say unreliable source. So they distrust, so you learn to distrust the non-West. Oh, if it is coming from Harvard, if it is coming from Oxford, it must be true. If it is coming from Hyderabad University, no. Oh, it is not alright. Anything is surprising. Alright? So this is what it is, and they ruined us and we trust them. So who can be more foolish than that? Think of it. This is the power of indoctrination. They made fools of us. And we should be able to recover. We hope so. We are not able to do that. So country of, they killed 50 million Indians with famines. There are 3-4 million people killed in the Bengal famine directly under Churchill during the Second World War. Okay, so we never asked why we should believe Macaulay. Change the whole system. Nobody raised this question. What are you talking about? But you'll ask me, if I say this is wrong, why should we trust you? So that's what we learned to discuss. I mean, you ask me, by all means ask me. It's a very good idea. Be skeptical. But be skeptical of every story you hear. I don't tell you ever to trust me. I never tell any of my students in any field, even in computer science, to trust me. You check it for yourself. I have only one formula for students: check, check, and cross-check. So this is what we wanted. This is what Macaulay wanted. Trust the West, distrust the non-West. And so, by the way, I was going to tell you that the stories of Copernicus and Ptolemy are false. Copernicus, by the way, stole from Ibn Shatir of Maraghe. So where is Maraghe? Maraghe is in Iran. There is this is taking a lot of time to come up. So I was going to show you this thing, image of, it's not coming up, I'm sorry, very slow. So we'll leave it there for the time being. Where the observatory of Nasiruddin Tusi was. So they had these stone observatories, and they are there in very many places. So he got this heliocentric idea, and Tycho Brahe and his assistant Kepler stole from India. There's a Neelkant model, as I was showing them, Tychonic model as it is called. It was done by Neelkant in the Kerala school, and it was taken from Kerala to the Jesuits, by the Jesuits to Tycho Brahe was the astronomer royal for the Holy Roman Empire. And so it went to Clavius, who was the Jesuit general. It went to Tycho Brahe. His assistant was Kepler, and he hid these sources from his assistant Kepler, because those days of the Inquisition, you could be liquidated, and apparently Kepler killed him and stole the papers. Then I also explained to them that the heliocentric theory that you learn, which is attributed, because what you learn is the story, the heliocentric story, why it is wrong. It's just bad physics. You can't have heliocentric orbits. And why is it bad physics? Because you have to have barycentric orbits. I showed them the two-body problem. I can show it to you if you like, but I will keep it for the time being. So it has to be two bodies. One body cannot revolve around the other as center. Just bad physics. But they teach it to all children. I have been doing that from my childhood, making circles with sun at the center. That's just the story you learn. It's just bad physics. What you need is the barycentric theory. Why do you need it? You need it for tidal forces. You can't explain tidal forces on a heliocentric theory. And you need tidal forces to explain the weather, to explain the monsoon in India. So that is the sort of thing that's going on. But, so I think I've made this point, I'm going in the wrong direction. Alright, so let's go to Euclid and Newton. So now these students are in class 8, next year they are going to go to class 9, where they will read about Euclid. Class 9 text chapter 5, Introduction to Euclid's Geometry. But what is it an introduction to? It's an introduction to Western supremacy. So this is what they will say, that he did some superior type of geometry. So you can read what it says, that we find that in some civilizations like Babylon, geometry existed as a very practically oriented discipline. So you must learn geometry only for impractical purposes. That's the So clearly it is a fact. That's what is being done. Those fools, they did it for practical purposes. The textbook is saying, I'm quoting direct from, it's a cut from the clip from there. So geometry developed by Egyptians consisted mainly of statements of results. And there were no general rules of procedure. Okay? And it did not develop as a systematic science. Now this story, what is meant by systematic science? Alright? But in civilizations like Greece, that's Euclid you are talking about and Pythagoras you are talking about. Okay, they gave the reasoning behind this. This is completely false, 100% false. But none of you will open the Euclid book and read. They did nothing different from what was done in India. Nothing different from what was done in Srivasutam, which was much worse what they did. It was religious. I'll come to that. So, reasoning they are talking about. But it's a very special kind of reasoning, because it's impractical reasoning. It is reasoning minus facts. Very dangerous kind of reasoning which pushes in religious belief into geometry, through geometry. And this is something which people don't understand. But it is there still in your 9th standard text. Now that 11th standard text will talk of Newton and calculus. Oh, see, he discovered calculus. Such a great guy. So gravitation or something is one thing, but he discovered calculus. He didn't even understand calculus. He talked of fluxions and so on. And that is why real numbers were invented 250 years after his death, because people said this is not making sense, what he is talking. So they are false gods of science. Alright? And they are used to influence your mathematics teaching in a very fundamental way. Not just in class 9, up to any level. Because what you do at the highest possible level is axiomatic mathematics. I used to do it, I was a formal mathematician. I did it for so many years, I taught real numbers, and at the postgraduate level I did all that, and then I gave it up. Other mathematicians are not so honest. So they don't give it up. I gave it up, because they stick to their jobs. So I have written 2 books on this. So one is on the theft of calculus from India. So this is called Cultural Foundations of Mathematics. As you can see, the nature of mathematical proof and the transmission of calculus from India to Europe in the 16th century. Transmission is a polite word for theft. So let's be clear about that. Just in case you couldn't read it against that background, here is the title again. So transmission of calculus. This is one book, it's a massive volume, it is 500, more than 500 pages, all A4 size. So, but it's available, I'm sure if you can find pirated copies of it on the net quite easily. The second book is on a much more radical topic, how the church infiltrated math through the myth of Euclid. So this is called Euclid and Jesus. The second edition of it is about to come out. The idea is this is Euclid was a woman, black woman, not a white man. So they got so enraged in South Africa, censored my article. They got so enraged, all the whites. So the subtitle is what is important, how and why the church changed mathematics and Christianity across 2 religious wars. A French edition of this is supposed to come out, and I am hoping that the French, they do have something to do with secularism, because even now in the Olympics, they did something strange. They had a parody of the Last Supper, and they had Marie Antoinette walking headless. So they celebrated the revolution, and the revolution not only displays the aristocracy, it displays the first estate, namely the church. They threw out the priests from the education system, said it must be done, but unfortunately Napoleon undid it all. So he wanted power, he undid it. So he said, but still some traces of it are there, some hints are there, so I am hoping that they will understand. That is the primary call, that you should teach religiously neutral mathematics, non-superstitious mathematics. You should throw out these church superstitions from mathematics. And I gave a talk on this in Australia. I was there a couple of months back, the 8th Pacific Rim Conference, and this is about, this is there on Twitter. So this is a link to the actual presentation. This is the abstract. This is the short abstract, there is a long abstract, there is a link to that here, and you can see the link to the presentation, which says openly that, this chap was a thief, and so on and so forth. Newton was a thief, and you're teaching calculus badly, and it has been, I've explained how to teach it differently, and this has been done in so many universities across the world. And it is all there. So I'm just giving you the one link to the tweet. The tweet has a link to the presentation, it has a link to the full abstract, and the short abstract is there. And you can just check it out. So this is a course which actually exists, has been taught in several universities, because Newton did not understand calculus. He talked of fluxions, he did not know how to sum infinite series, and so on, which existed in India. And the same way, now this you may like to see. This is that this idea that I was just talking about, that the church infiltrated the philosophy of math. You don't understand how it happened. I'll just explain in 2 minutes. But that makes church beliefs compulsory subjects in school. Because part of their rational theology of reason. which was taken from the Akli Kalam. Alright, so this is what I am saying, that you see, math and soul, Plato, if you read Plato, he relates mathematics to soul. The very word mathematics, mathesis means, it comes from mathesis, and mathesis means learning, and learning means arousing the soul to recollect the knowledge that it had in its previous lives. And because the soul is eternal, the knowledge that arouses it is also eternal. So this is there in Socrates, in the dialogue between Socrates and the slave boy and so on, how he shows this. It's there in Plato Meno, it is there in Plato Republic, it is there everywhere. So if you read Plato, just go to Plato Meno online and search for the third appearance of soul. I won't do it right now. And then, because it involved the soul, during the Crusades, the church invented axiomatic proof. It took over it banned it first. Church banned this mathematics. It was eliminated by Justinian in 532. All schools of philosophy and mathematics were shut down. And then it accepted it back during the Crusades because it wanted axiomatic proof to convert Muslims. And then these are just 3 slides of the talk. It's a very complex talk. So please read it. The point is that it is unethical, it is illegal, but we do it anyway because our judges are lawyers, they don't know any mathematics. So there is no way to stop it. So it infiltrated it through the myth of Euclid. So this is the point I was making. And that is what happened. Now how do you know? Where are the religious beliefs and 1 plus 1 equal to 2? Everybody asks. I go to Iran, in Gom. What are you saying? Where is the religious belief in 1 plus 1 equal to 2? I go to South Africa. Where are you going to decolonize 1 plus 1 equal to 2? So perfectly clear, isn't it? How can you decolonize 1 plus 1 equal to 2? How can there be religious belief in that? So absolutely certain. So you are thinking of the KG method. So KG method is what? Very easy. There is no religious belief in this. This is purely empirical. We are seeing 1 orange and 1 makes 2 oranges. So no question of any religion in this. Alright? But that is not the only way to do it. Bertrand Russell, he got a Nobel Prize. He wrote this grand book, Principia Mathematica. What does it have? A 378-page proof of 1 plus 1 equal to 2. This is the page 378 from that book. Does it make the slightest little bit of sense to you? So how do you know there is no religion in 1 plus 1 equal to 2? That's Bertrand Russell. And this is where it is. He is proving 1 plus 1 equal to 2. So it doesn't make any sense, does it? You ask any mathematician in the university, they won't understand it. So, but you are sure that there can be no religious belief in mathematics. 378 pages, you went through the philosophy. Did you know? So I won't give you Bertrand Russell because that's too difficult, right? So I will give you just class 9 math. Class 9 math not too difficult, right? So what does class 9 math? Why just ask this question? Why does he need so much? Why does he need 378 pages? To prove 1 plus 1 equal to 2, this great man who got the Nobel Prize, are you going to trust his authority because he got the Nobel Prize? Because the empirical is prohibited in axiomatic mathematics, which is what everybody does. He was one of the inventors of formalism. It is prohibited, it is rejected as something inferior. How do you know? Because I say so? No. It's there, right there in the 9th standard text. Just open it and read it. And if you choose to read it, don't blame me. So this is stated in the class 9 text. This is what it is. I will just take one statement here. Beware of being deceived by what you see. Beware of being deceived. Your proof must be based only on logic, not what you see. You cannot say, I see this, therefore it is true. It is prohibited in mathematics. And it is stated in your class 9 text. Now if you don't open it, you did not read it, you did not read it all these years, at least do so now. This is in class 9 text. Beware of what you see. And I will give you another context in which the same statement is made. Alright, what is that context? George Orwell. So, of course, the idea is if you prohibit the empirical, anything at all can be proved by authority. That is what is done. All the axioms you have to accept from authority. They are all about infinity. There is no way to check them. So, you'll have set theory, you'll have axiom of choice, you'll have this, that, all sorts of things which you cannot understand. You have to accept it from authority, Western authority. So, they laid the axiom. So, you become their slave. They will dictate the nature of mathematical knowledge. And you don't even understand it. Even after it is pointed out, you will fight with me, you won't check it. At least most people do. I hope you will not, I hope you will support me and come along with me, but most people want to fight with me. Okay? So the church made fools of you like this, right at the level of mathematics. You never thought they could smuggle religion into mathematics, but they did. And through mathematics into the science of Stephen Hawking and so on. Into the science of Roger Penrose, who got the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago. Anyway, let's leave that aside. So what I want to say is that the NCERT statement resembles what George Orwell said. Do you remember George Orwell 1984? You remember, very good. So what did he say? The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. Don't believe it. Believe what we said. Don't believe what you see. There is something faulty. Beware of being deceived by what you see, but don't beware of being deceived by what you are told. Alright? Because we are absolutely 100% infallible. And this was their final and most essential command. Beware of being deceived by what you see. Beware of the empirical. That is how mathematics is done. That is how it is done in all the universities, in India, in abroad, everywhere. So this is not accidental. The party in this case is the church. You can, once you reject the empirical, you can do whatever you like. Because then you have only authority to go on. You have nothing else to go on. Reasoning they talk about. But the reasoning starts from what? From premises that are based on authority. And so you can tailor them to arrive at any conclusion that you want. Absolutely any conclusion you want can be proved as a mathematical theorem. Any conclusion. Any nonsense conclusion. So when I did it, they censored my article. Alright? So how will you check what I am saying? Don't open your children's school bell. Why should you? You never did it when you were a student, why should you do it now? Right? Don't read a reply of mine to it. What you should do is just ask a mathematician. Go to the university, ask, hey, is this chapter saying, is this right? And he will tell you the truth. Because if I say astrology is a pseudo-science, what should you do? You should go and ask an astrologer. Isn't that the best way of checking whether it is a pseudo-science or science? That is what you will do, ask a mathematician. His livelihood is based on that. You should ask him. And if you go to a vice chancellor, he'll say, no, I can't take, I'll ask the math department. So they are in complete control. Alright? So let me go to the conclusions. Colonialism fooled you with the help of false stories of their false gods of science, which you never check. There are hundreds of false gods they have erected, but I talked of only two of them, Euclid and Newton. And then Macaulay used these false stories to say we are immeasurably superior, you ape us. And you are immeasurably inferior, we accepted it, so we mentally accepted them. Today we think that the West is best. We think whites are superior. Everywhere you want fair skin. Wanted fair skin. If you look at the matrimonial ads, wanted fair skin because that's the superior way. So this psychologically impressed their claim of supremacy on us. Alright? And though we accepted colonial education for the sake of science, we never learned any science. Most people are illiterate. Why? Because it's deliberately made illiterate. Because if once you are illiterate, you have no hope of doing anything except by asking someone. And whom will you ask? You ask the person who is authorized. Who are like mathematicians, they are the authorized person. So you are caught from a trap from which there is no easy exit. Alright? So you can't check it any longer because it has been there for so long, the system, it is very difficult to overthrow. So caught and trapped. And the point is that it made you think that education is not about knowledge, it's about a government job. That was a bait they did because people rejected education, that why do you want it? Now it is a corporate job, doesn't matter. But at that time they said, government sarkari naukri mil jayegi, you'll be comfortable for the rest of your life, just do what we say. You became obedient. That bait was there, not knowledge. So you say, what should you spend money, lot of money, what for? For getting that job, not for knowledge. And they mentally enslaved you. So So, since there is no way to escape from either for you or your children, what we are doing in this course is making a small beginning to make children understand there was a scientific tradition in India, that it was very good, that the calendar they learn, that they themselves can check. They don't have to rely on some authority. They can see there was scientific tradition, that there was science, and they can check for themselves that it is right. And they can throw out all these myths so that doubt has been cast in their mind. Thank you very much.